welcome the decision of the UN Security Council's ISIL and Al-Qaida Sanctions Committee to list Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorist Abdul Rehman Makki. India remains committed to pursuing a zero-tolerance approach to terrorism.
Those who are involved and who are complicit in acts of terrorism should be brought to book. Terrorists are made accountable for their actions.
It backed up realizing that this doesn't pay any dividends for them because terrorism is now, countering terrorism is now increasingly becoming a global norm.
But first things first, who exactly is Abdul Rehman Makki and why is his blacklisting by the UN Sanctions Committee such a big deal? He is the deputy chief of the Lashkar-e-Taiba. After Hafiz Mohammad Saeed, he's the second most important person. He's the brother-in-law of Hafiz Mohammad Saeed. His basic job is radicalizing, recruiting young people into the Lashkar-e-Taiba. That's his main role within the hierarchy of the LET. He heads what is the central proselytizing team, the team that goes around preaching jihad to these young people in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. He heads that particular unit of the Lashkar-e-Taiba. He's a regular. If you remember, there are multiple videos of him on the internet at Kashmir Solidarity Day, making one speech after another. In the past too, he has threatened to forcibly, militarily seize Kashmir. In fact, one of those bites had gone viral some years ago. This was a rally back in 2017. That's when he sort of shot to fame. The first pictures of him shot to fame. This is Abdul Rehman Makki. It's been a 10-year journey for India to get him blacklisted at the United Nations Security Council. This is what he said in that infamous rally in 2017.
अल्लाह की कसम भारत के अंदर जाके फौज के साथ लड़के हिंदू फौज की छातियों पर चढ़ के हमारा असल मसला भारत के साथ है आजादी कश्मीर का कश्मीरियों की मदद करने का वहां से हिंदू फौज को निकालने का उन मुसलमानों 1.25 करोड़ कश्मीरियों को आजाद कराने का रावियों की रवानी का सतलुज की सैरानी का हमारा मसला है असल.
So Abdul Rehman Makki has been unleashing terror. He's been involved in conspiracy or the actual plotting of a number of terrorist attacks here in India for the last 20 years plus. In 2000, that's when his name first came to light. This was the Red Fort attack in which 6 Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists opened indiscriminate fire on police forces. Then in 2008, in Rampur in Uttar Pradesh, in that attack, 5 Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists attacked a CRPF camp. 7 CRPF personnel were killed. Then, of course, the most infamous for his role in plotting and conspiring in the 2008-26-11 Mumbai attacks. More than 160 people died. It was the worst terror attack on Indian soil. In 2018, in Srinagar, there was an attack on a CRPF camp in which 1 trooper died. This was a suicide squad attack that happened in Srinagar. Then in 2018, there was the Baramulla attack in which 3 civilians were shot dead by Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists. Same year, in 2018, there was an attack on the famous journalist Sujat Bukhari, who is from the Kashmir Times. His 2 guards, including a personal security officer, were shot dead. Abdul Rehman Makki was behind that. And in 2018, the Bandipora attack, in which 4 army soldiers were killed while trying to thwart an infiltration bid. Now, why is this sanctioning, this proscribing of Abdul Rehman Makki such an important thing? The UNSC 1267 Sanctions Committee is the highest body, and they've gone through a series of charges against Abdul Rehman Makki. Number 1, he's wanted by the Indian government for numerous terror attacks that I just enlisted a moment ago. Number 2, he's associated with ISIL as well as with Al-Qaida. So it's not just his connection and his central role in Lashkar-e-Taiba, but also his connections with these 2 proscribed organizations, ISIL and Al-Qaida. He's participated in terror financing, in planning, plotting, conspiring some of the biggest terror attacks that have taken place in India. Number 4, he has facilitated or directly perpetrated many terror acts in India over the last 20 years. And charge 5, he has recruited actively a number of young jihadists to carry out acts of terror. And number 6, he's actively supported the activities of the Lashkar-e-Taiba, whether it is the front the so-called charity front, the Jamaat-ud-Dawa, or other activities carried out by the Lashkar-e-Taiba. So what does the blacklisting of Abdul Rehman Makki actually mean? How will this affect both his operations as well as operations of the Lashkar-e-Taiba? The implication number one is that this will put severe restrictions on Makki's ability to travel, both domestically within Pakistan and also, more importantly, foreign travel. He will not be able to leave the country. Implication number two, it blocks the Lashkar-e-Taiba from collecting funds. There are financial restrictions that will be put on the Lashkar-e-Taiba as well as on Abdul Rehman Makki to be able to collect funds for terror financing. Number three, he cannot collect funds even in the name of charity or proselytizing or evangelizing in the name of Islam. Even that would be curbed by today's sanctioning. Implication number four are his financial assets, whether they are homes, whether they are assets in bank lockers, it will all be frozen. He will not have access to both liquid and illiquid assets. And finally, implication number five, it would also mean he cannot be seen carrying any weapons of any sort. He will not be given regular gun licenses, even if he were to apply for one. And he cannot be seen as dealing in any kind of weapons trade. Also, there are implications in terms of global security, human rights, international relations by today's proscribing by the United Nations Sanctions Committee. The global security message is that it sends out a strong message to countries like Pakistan and indeed other countries who may be using terror proxies that the UNSC is serious about combating terror. It is a clear warning to states, whether who directly support terrorists like Pakistan or states who support and who are involved in the support of these terrorist activities, that it is no longer kosher. All right, I'm interrupting this broadcast. Let's go across to a live press conference that's coming in at the conclusion of the BJP's national executive, the two-day national executive. Let's listen in to this live feed.
इस प्रकार की एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण बात उन्होंने कही और साथ साथ ये भी कहा कि इस अमृत काल को कर्तव्य काल में परिवर्तित करें, तभी हम अपने देश को तेजी के साथ आगे ले जा सकते हैं। आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने एक प्रकार से ये बताया कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी अब केवल राजनीतिक आंदोलन भर नहीं है, तो उसका रूपांतरण एक सामाजिक आंदोलन में हुआ है, जो समाज के सामाजिक आर्थिक परिवर्तन के लिए काम करने वाला, कार्य करने वाला उपकरण इस रूप से आज कार्य कर रही है और उसी अनुरूप हमारे कार्यकर्ताओं ने भी काम करना चाहिए। साथ ही में उन्होंने कुछ कार्यक्रम भी हम लोगों को विशेष रूप से करने को कहा, जिसमें भारतीय जनता पार्टी के मोर्चों के कार्यक्रम बॉर्डर विलेजेस के साथ हमारा संपर्क ज़्यादा बने, उनका मेन स्ट्रीमिंग ये हम लोग कर पाए और वहाँ पर हमारी एक्टिविटी बढ़े, ताकि हमारा संपर्क सूत्र भी वहाँ बने और हमारी विकास की योजनाएं भी बहुत तक पहुँचे। उसी प्रकार से आकांक्षी जिलों के विकास में भारतीय जनता पार्टी के कार्यकर्ताओं की भूमिका हो। जहाँ पर हम लोग अगर माल न्यूट्रिशन से लड़ाई कर रहे हैं, तो क्यों ना भारतीय जनता पार्टी के कार्यकर्ता भी अपने ओर से वहाँ पर कोई ना कोई ऐसा कार्य चलाए कि जहाँ से न्यूट्रिशन मिशन को एक मदद हो। आकांक्षी जिलों में जो कार्य चल रहे हैं वो कार्य गति से हो, इस पर हम लोग ध्यान दें। उसमें कहीं कहीं गड़बड़ नहीं हो रही है, इसकी ओर हम ध्यान दें। ये बात भी उन्होंने हम सभी को बताई है। इसके साथ साथ एक भारत श्रेष्ठ भारत इस संकल्प को दोहराते हुए हमारे सारे राज्य एक दूसरे के साथ समन्वय करें, एक दूसरे के भाषा को, कल्चर को हम किस प्रकार से अपनाएं, किस प्रकार से उसके साथ हम लोग एक भावनात्मक रूप से जुड़े, इसके भी कार्यक्रम हो। जिस प्रकार से काशी में तमिल संगमम हुआ, उसी प्रकार से हम लोग अलग अलग भाषाओं को साथ में लेकर इस भारत को एक भारत के रूप में कैसे तैयार करें, ये भी बात उन्होंने हम सबके सामने रखी। एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण बात उन्होंने कही कि आज जैसे हमने बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ के माध्यम से विशेष रूप से जेंडर डिस्पैरिटी को दूर करने का प्रयास किया, और जिस प्रकार से उस बेटी को बचाने की कोशिश की जो बेटी समाज की कुरीतियों के कारण गर्भ में ही मारी जा रही थी, उन्होंने कहा इसी प्रकार से आज हमारी धरती माता की पुकार को भी हमें सुनना है। जिस प्रकार से हम लोग केमिकल्स का, फर्टिलाइजर्स का अनन्वित उपयोग करते हुए हमारी धरती माता को प्रदूषित कर रहे हैं, जिस प्रकार से आज इस प्रदूषण के कारण क्लाइमेट चेंज की विभीषिकाओं से, जलवायु परिवर्तन की विभीषिकाओं से हमें जूझना पड़ रहा है, हमको धरती माता की पुकार सुननी होगी और धरती माता की इस पुकार को सुनते हुए, चाहे वो प्राकृतिक खेती हो या एनर्जी ट्रांजिशन हो, इन सारे विषयों के ऊपर भारतीय जनता पार्टी को सरकार के साथ कदम से कदम मिलाकर चलना होगा। और इसमें हम किसानों को किस प्रकार से प्रेरित कर पाए, किस प्रकार से उनको मदद कर पाए, इसको एक मिशन के रूप में हम कैसे ले पाए, ताकि जलवायु परिवर्तन में और उसके खेती किसानी पर होने वाले परिणाम और उससे धरती माता पर होने वाले परिणाम, इसको हम कैसे दूर करें, इसके ऊपर भी हम लोग कार्य करें। आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने ये भी कहा कि विशेष रूप से हम लोग 18 से 25 इस आयु की जो हमारी तरुणाई है, इस तरुणाई ने भारत के राजनीतिक इतिहास को देखा नहीं है। उन्हें यह पता नहीं है कि भारत में पिछली सरकारों में किस प्रकार से अनाचार, दुराचार और भ्रष्टाचार देखा गया, किस प्रकार का कुशासन था और कहां भारत आज चलते हुए आया है और किस प्रकार से हम सुशासन की ओर जा रहे हैं। इसलिए 18 से 25 इस आयु के जो हमारे युवा हैं, इनमें भी जागृति तैयार करना, इनको भी लोकतंत्र के मूल्यों के साथ जोड़ने की कोशिश करना, और साथ साथ किस प्रकार से के कुशासन से हम सुशासन की ओर आए हैं, ये बताकर उनको सुशासन के साथ जोड़ना, और सुशासन का महत्व क्या है, सुशासन से देश कैसे परिवर्तित होता है, ये सारी बातें उन तक पहुंचाने का काम भी भारतीय जनता पार्टी को आने वाले दिनों में करना है। साथ साथ भारतीय जनता पार्टी भाजपा जोड़ो अभियान चलाएगी, जिसमें सभी लोगों को भारतीय जनता पार्टी के साथ जोड़ने का प्रयास हम करेंगे। और प्रधानमंत्री जी ने एक बात बहुत स्पष्टता से बताई कि हम लोगों को संवेदनशीलता के साथ समाज के सभी अंगों के साथ अपना रिश्ता जोड़ना है। आज भारतीय जनता पार्टी सभी समाजों तक पहुंची है, लेकिन कहीं पर अगर कोई कमी है भी दूर करना होगा। और साथ साथ ये भी संदेशा उन्होंने दिया कि ये सारी चीजें करते हुए केवल वोट की चिंता मत कीजिए, वोट के लिए ये सारी चीजें मत कीजिए, हमें देश और समाज को बदलना है, ये हमारा कर्तव्य है। कोई वोट दे या न दे, अगर हम इस सामाजिक काम को आगे करते जाएंगे, लोगों को जोड़ते जाएंगे, तो लोग हमारे साथ जुड़ेंगे। इसलिए कोरी राजनीति का विचार न करते हुए हम समाज नीति को लेकर किस प्रकार से अपने देश के इस अमृत काल को नए रूप से परिभाषित कर पाए, इसकी ओर भारतीय जनता पार्टी ज़्यादा ध्यान दे। एक और चीज़ प्रधानमंत्री जी ने भारतीय जनता पार्टी के हम सभी को बताई है कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी एक ऐसी पार्टी है जिसमें बड़े पैमाने पर सदस्यता होती है और एक लोकतांत्रिक प्रक्रिया से यहाँ सभी का चयन होता है। लेकिन हम लोग इन सदस्यों का सम्मेलन नहीं करते और इसलिए उन्होंने भारतीय जनता पार्टी को ये सूचना की है कि जो हमारे प्राथमिक सदस्य हैं, जो हमारे प्राइमरी मेंबर्स हैं, ये प्राइमरी मेंबर्स का भी हम लोग एक सम्मेलन करें, हर डिस्ट्रिक्ट में वो सम्मेलन करें और उसकी भी रचना आने वाले दिनों में भारतीय जनता पार्टी करेगी। कुल मिलाकर मैं ये कहना चाहता हूं कि आज का भाषण ये किसी राजनीतिक नेता का भाषण नहीं था, किसी पॉलिटिकल लीडर का भाषण नहीं था, एक स्टेट्समैन का भाषण था जिसमें पार्टी से भी ऊपर देश और देश के लिए पार्टी, इस प्रकार की संकल्पना हमारे सामने प्रधानमंत्री जी ने रखी है। और मेरा विश्वास है कि जो मार्ग प्रधानमंत्री जी ने दिखाया है उस पर भारतीय जनता पार्टी चलेगी और इन सारे संकल्पों को पूरा करेगी, क्योंकि प्रधानमंत्री जी ने एक बहुत अच्छी बात कही कि जो संकल्प करता है वही इतिहास रचता है और भारतीय जनता पार्टी को संकल्प भी करना है और भारत के लिए इतिहास भी रचना है।
कोई सवाल हो? न्यूज़ 24 से गौरव।
सर, लगभग 1 घंटे का जैसा कि आपने बताया उनका भाषण था। 9 राज्यों में चुनाव है, फिर अगले साल फाइनल है। इसको लेकर कुछ उन्होंने कहा चुनाव की तैयारियों में जुड़ने के लिए?
देखिए, सब लोगों को यही लगता था कि चूंकि सामने चुनाव है तो ये भाषण चुनाव का होगा, इसलिए मैंने स्पष्ट रूप से कहा ये राजनेता का भाषण नहीं था, ये स्टेट्समैन का भाषण था। और इसलिए चुनाव को लेकर कोई बहुत बड़ी बात उन्होंने अपने भाषण में नहीं कही। हाँ, ये जरूर कहा कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी को मजबूत कीजिए और हर जगह पर भारतीय जनता पार्टी पहुंचे, ये प्रयास कीजिए।
विकास चंद्रा, न्यूज़ नेशन, बोलिए।
बैठक में क्या प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने सिर्फ जो आपने कहा कि स्टेट्समैन की तरह उन्होंने बात कही, संगठन को लेकर के भी क्या कुछ उन्होंने बातें कही, क्योंकि जिस तरीके से आगे चुनाव है और तमाम सारी चुनौती है उसको लेकर?
देखिए, ये पूरी बातें संगठन के लिए ही थी। भारतीय जनता पार्टी किस प्रकार से अपने संगठन को देश के विकास के इस अमृत काल में जोड़े। मैं फिर एक बार कहना चाहता हूँ, उन्होंने बहुत एक ऐसी बात कही है कि ऐसा काल जो अभी आता हुआ दिखाई पड़ रहा है, ये शायद अगर हम लोग इस काल को अगर हमारी विकास यात्रा में परिवर्तित नहीं कर पाए तो हम पीछे छूट जाएंगे। इसलिए अब भारतीय जनता पार्टी अपनी पूरी ताकत इस अमृत काल को विकास काल में परिवर्तित करने में लगाए।
स्मृति काक, रामचंद्रन, हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स।
सर, पिछली बार पीएम ने बोला था कि देयर शुड बी एन आउटरीच टुवर्ड्स द माइनॉरिटीज, स्पेशली द मार्जिनलाइज्ड माइनॉरिटीज अमंग द मुस्लिम्स। उसका कोई रिव्यू हुआ कि वो कितना हो पाया है, और डू यू गेट अ सिमिलर काइंड ऑफ अ डायरेक्टिव दिस टाइम आल्सो?
देखिए, जो पिछले बार कहा था उसका एक कार्यक्रम भी भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने तैयार किया और प्रधानमंत्री जी हमेशा कहते हैं कि जब तक समाज के मार्जिनलाइज्ड लोग जो है, वो किसी भी समाज के हो, उनको मुख्य धारा में नहीं लाएंगे, तब तक देश की विकास यात्रा अधूरी होगी। और भारतीय जनता पार्टी लगातार ये प्रयास भी कर रहा है।
विकास भदौरिया, एबीपी।
सर, आपने कहा, प्रधानमंत्री जी ने बोला कि धरती माँ की पुकार सुनना भी जरूरी है। उन्होंने किस कंटेक्स्ट में ये बोला? क्या कोई एग्जाम्पल दिया अपने भाषण के दौरान?
जी देखिए, उन्होंने ये कहा कि जिस समय हमारे यहाँ पर एक जेंडर डिस्पैरिटी तैयार हुई थी, उस समय हम लोग ये कहते थे कि जो पेट में बच्चियाँ हैं उनकी पुकार सुनिए, उनको जन्म लेना है, उनको इस धरती पर कुछ करना है। वो जैसी पुकार हम लोगों ने सुनी, आज उसी प्रकार की एक पुकार धरती माता कर रही है कि मैंने आपको सब दिया, मैंने आपको पेड़ दिए, मैंने आपको अनाज दिया, लेकिन आज मेरे साथ जो व्यवहार हो रहा है, ये व्यवहार एक प्रकार से विनाश की ओर ले जा रहा है। और ये धरती माता की जो पुकार है, इसको हमको सुनना होगा।
संतोष पाठक।
देवेंद्र जी, आपने कहा कि कार्यकारिणी की बैठक में प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा कि संवेदनशीलता के साथ समाज के सारे तबकों के साथ रिश्ता कायम करना है, तो क्या कुछ खास तबकों का उन्होंने नाम भी लिया, जिक्र भी किया?
नहीं, देखिए, समाज के सभी तबकों का अर्थ ये होता है कि सारे के सारे, उसमें पर्टिकुलर ये तबका या वो तबका नहीं, समाज के जितने पिछड़े हैं, ये सभी को हम लोग किस प्रकार से मुख्य धारा में ला पाए, इसका प्रयास हमको करना है।
द ट्रिब्यून सर।
Devendra Fadnavis, Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra, giving details to the press of the Prime Minister's address at the concluding session of the National Executive of the BJP. Remember, the BJP has now extended the term for its national president by a year till June 2024. JP Nadda will continue to be the BJP president. The Prime Minister talking about how Amrit Kal, the next 25 years, PM has been talking about making a Viksit Bharat or a developed India. Let me go across to our political editor, Maria Shakil, who has more details on this. So Fadnavis outlining what the broad contours of the Prime Minister's speech were. What are you hearing on what were the points of emphasis that the Prime Minister laid on in his concluding address today?
Yes, so the message certainly is, Zaka, there are 400 days left for the big election, the big battle for 2024 Lok Sabha elections, and the entire party has to go full throttle, that go all out, communicate to the people, your voters, your supporters of the kind of work that has been done by Prime Minister Modi, that is he himself, in the last 8 years, and go and win voters is the message that is coming in. I think the message also of the G20 has been outlined by the Prime Minister, but the special reach out to the youth of the nation is something which is very important. We also need to tell our youth between 18 to 25 years about the work of our government and how we have ensured that this government is corrupt free, that there is no corruption as far as this government is concerned, and how past UPA governments have been full of corruption. I think that is one highlight, be it culture, language, tradition, all these aspects highlighted by the Prime Minister, very much part of the symbolism which was on display at the National Executive. But Zaka, I think the big takeaway certainly would be that road show where the message was about Delhi ki satta, with the Prime Minister in those very brief road show of half a kilometer sent a message that he is the biggest vote catcher, the biggest imagery as far as the party is concerned. And because this is the year of G20 and of India's presidency, I think the message again is of how Prime Minister Modi has positioned India globally.
All right, we'll leave it at that. We'll take forward this conversation in our primetime coverage as well. Is it going to be Modi versus who exactly for 2024? Clearly, as of today, the BJP and the Prime Minister are in numero uno position, but can the opposition get its act together? But let's shift focus back to our big focus here on Viewpoint, and that is the blacklisting, the proscribing of Abdul Rehman Makki, the second in command of the Jamaat-ud-Dawa. This is what happened at the United Nations.
We welcome the decision of the UN Security Council's ISIL and Al-Qaida Sanctions Committee to list Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorist Abdul Rehman Makki. India remains committed to pursuing a zero-tolerance approach to terrorism.
Those who are involved and who are complicit in acts of terrorism should be brought to book. Terrorists are made accountable for their actions.
Backed off realizing that this doesn't pay any dividends for them because terrorism is now, countering terrorism is now increasingly becoming a global norm.
All right, so what exactly are the implications of this blacklisting of the number 2 man in the Jamaat-ud-Dawa? What does it mean in terms of global security, human rights, and of course international relations? In terms of global security, it sends out a very strong message to countries like Pakistan and other countries who use terror proxies that the global community and the UNSC is absolutely dead serious about combating terror. It is also a clear warning to other states, not necessarily the ones who directly use terror proxies, but ones who support those states who are involved in terror financing, who are involved in shielding these terrorists, countries like China, for example, that this is no longer kosher. From a human rights point of view, it holds the perpetrators of these terrorist actions. Remember, there was a convention on the victims of terrorism that the UN had just convened a few months ago. This sends out a clear signal that those victims have human rights as well. Their human rights have been violated with these terrorist acts and they need to be held accountable. It's a message of support to the victims of these terrorist actions. Like I said, there was a first ever global conference by the UN on victims of terror attacks. International relations, it sends a strong signal to regional powers like China, for example, that it cannot be seen as tolerating terrorist elements. Yes, there is global geopolitics. Yes, China will want to shield Pakistan, but it cannot be seen as shielding terrorists, hardcore terrorists like Abdul Rehman Makki. It also sends out a support to other nations in the region. It could help de-escalate tensions. But here's the interesting thing. China, this is not the first time that China has blocked a known and dreaded terrorist from being proscribed by the United Nations Security Council. It's been on a blocking spree since 2009, since right after the 26/11 attacks. Number one, Masood Azhar, the Jaish-e-Mohammed chief, he was put on a technical hold multiple times. First in 2009, then in 2016 after the Pathankot attack, then in 2017, and then finally in March 2019 after the Pulwama attack. Basically, China put it on a technical hold, saying there needs to be more time to assess information. Finally, after I think 5 attempts, finally China accepted the proposal to proscribe Masood Azhar in May of 2019. Abdul Rauf Asghar, again, somebody who was a relative of Masood Azhar, his younger brother. He's the deputy chief of the Jaish-e-Mohammed. His listing was also put on technical hold in August of 2022. Sajid Mir, the Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorist, his proscribing at the United Nations Sanctions Committee was blocked. China blocked it in September of 2022. There is Talha Hafiz Saeed, again relative of and the son of the Lashkar-e-Taiba chief Hafiz Mohammed Saeed. His name was also blocked in the listing process that happened at the Sanctions Committee in October of 2022. And Shahid Mahmood is an LET terrorist whose name also got blocked in October of 2022. So then the question is, why has China done this? Why has it suddenly taken off that technical hold, given up on the UN listing as of today? Is there a message that's being sent both to India as well as to Pakistan? The signal for India, it is a step towards trying to normalize diplomatic relations. Remember, they've got a new foreign minister. They're trying to normalize ties with India despite the situation on the border. The message to Pakistan, of course, it is worried that Pakistan is getting diplomatically isolated and China can't be seen as the only country that is backing Pakistan. The second message, it's a signal to India to dismiss the notion that China is any kind of sympathizer to Pakistan and sympathizer to terrorist elements. The message to Pakistan is you cannot support terror when it doesn't serve the purpose. Remember, Chinese nationals have been attacked during the course of the last many years. That's a wrap. We'll have more on Makki, but on the other side, A very special episode of The Biggest Exclusive with Ridhima Bhatnagar.
I wish I can be a man, Qinwen Zhang, the Chinese tennis player, said after losing out on a French Open title because of menstrual cramps. Now, these words are enough to depict a woman's pain during periods. However, the menstrual experience itself is very different for each woman. For some women, cramps might not result in discomfort, but for some, it can be an experience of acute stomach cramps, embarrassment, stigma, and even missed opportunities. In a research conducted by the University of London, they described menstruation pain as almost as bad as having a heart attack. Let's go back to 2017. In India, you had a former member of parliament in the Lok Sabha from Arunachal Pradesh who introduced the Menstruation Benefit Bill, a private member's bill to provide women working in public and private sectors with 2 days of paid menstruation leave each month. The bill back then had triggered a massive debate. But things aren't very different in 2023 either. The decision of the Kerala government is seeing sharp reactions. The Kerala government on Monday said it would grant menstrual leave for female students studying at all state universities coming under the Department of Higher Education. Taking a cue from the Cochin University of Science and Technology, in providing this menstrual leave to its students, the Higher Education Minister said that the government has decided to implement the same in all state universities under the purview of the department. But critics feel that this move will make the women miss out on many opportunities, as this will essentially make women to be seen as the weaker gender. Thus, we're asking, as far as the menstrual leave is concerned, is a leave of this sort an incentive or a deterrent? So what are the arguments for and what are the arguments against as far as menstrual leave is concerned? Let's break down all those details so that we can set up what we'll be discussing over the next 30 minutes. Let's first begin with what are people in favor of menstrual leave saying. Leaves are optional and need-based. So essentially they're saying choice is the essential word. For example, if a woman has acute stomach cramps, she has the option to avail this leave. If not, you choose not to avail this particular leave. What are critics saying? That period leave considered discriminatory. Many are saying you already have the option of sick leave. Why do you want to add another aspect to it called period leave or menstrual leave? People who are supporting menstrual leave are saying that periods actually hamper the productivity and efficiency. So if you're an employer and you know that your employee's productivity is going to be hampered in those particular days, won't it actually be better if that employee has the option to take a leave like this? But what are critics saying? They're saying this is against constitutional right to equality. Many are also saying that at a time when women are wanting to break ceilings, wanting to break barriers, this actually will make them take 100 steps back. Let's talk about some other arguments as well. People in favor are saying that women experience pain and emotional agony. As I said when I started the show, if you go back to a survey that was conducted by the University of London, they said that many women's stomach cramps are so acute that it can actually be compared to the pain one goes through when you're suffering from a heart attack. But what are critics saying? The unwillingness to hire women at workplaces. Many are saying this will actually now be used by employers because they will say that should I give menstrual leave to women when I know that their productivity also will be impacted during that time. So women either way will lose out on a lot of opportunities. Let's talk about some other arguments. People supporting the concept of menstrual leave are also saying will improve women's health and well-being because we are saying that a woman is in so much pain and discomfort. Isn't it better for her to take those days off and then come back fresh the next day. Critics are saying this legitimizes the idea that women are the weaker sex or the weaker gender. So as I said, this entire debate in fact is not new. It's not new in India, it's not new globally. But despite all of that, we continue to see a lot of sharp reactions. I just want to give you a context of what women actually go through when they have their periods or when they're going through their menstruation cycle. How painful are menstrual camps? And as I said, we'll go back to that survey of University of London. They've gone on to say that the pain is as bad as someone actually having a heart attack. So many women are saying that why are you putting us in such a painful position? Why not give us that option of actually using this sleeve? That survey also says existing treatments for period pain are very limited. The choice is not there with women to actually go forward and have some sort of solution. They're also talking about stigma. They're asking how many women are actually going to be comfortable walking up to a male manager and talking about a leave like this. Period-related illness can actually cause infertility as well. So it's not just the period pain, but the disorders that follow through a woman's body as well. Period cramps not considered public health issue, and that seems to be an issue that many women continue to voice about. There's just not enough diagnosis, treatment, research, or just enough data to understand what women are going through. Pain not life-threatening, but it does affect your daily life and your productivity as well. And that's why I'll go back to that question that I pointed out earlier, that if an employer already knows that the employee's productivity is going to be low on these particular days, isn't it actually better for her to have that option of availing a leave like this? I quickly also want to talk to you about the fallout of women suffering from menstrual cramps. 23 million girls drop out annually after their periods begin. And we're not only talking about what happens in rural areas where we do know that many women don't even have the access to sanitary pads, so on and so forth. 80% of women actually suffer from various disorders that is actually a result of menstrual cramps. What we're also now understanding is as many as 25 million people suffer from various other disorders and a pain that acute where they might feel that they're almost passing out. Also quickly, there's a Dutch study that also points out to this entire aspect of productivity, of how women productivity actually falls in these days, and it's below par on days of their period cycle. Thus, the larger question that we're asking this evening is, what do you feel about menstrual leave? Should women actually have the choice? Or do you think that this will actually be a deterrent as far as women are concerned? We're also opening our call-in lines and numbers flashing on your screens. We'd love to hear your views. We'd love to hear from women especially to understand, what do you feel? Do you feel that menstrual leave is something that should be made available? Or do you think this would be a deterrent? 0120-434-1895 is the number. Let me also now bring in our guest to take this conversation forward. We have Ms. Karuna Nandi, Senior Advocate. I also have Gursakhi Logani, social media influencer. We also have Anil Murthy, co-founder Save India Family Foundation. And we also have Dr. Nidhi Jha, a gynecologist. Good to have all of you on the broadcast.